Shalom Aleichem, everybody. We are learning the Sicha of Bamidbar Aleph, a typical or archetypical Rashi Sicha that is relatively short but very powerful in its questions and obviously in the Rebbe's original answer. Basically, the Rebbe goes and he's explaining what Rashi says in the pasuk B'Shamrus Kunasam. So the Rashi says, Kabbalas Damim Uzrika V'Aktor V'Avedas HaMesudus L'Koyanim. And the question that the Rebbe wanted to know is, fundamentally, the fundamental question is, how did we know it's talking about a new thing, B'Shamrus Kunasam, Kabbalas Damim Uzrika V'Aktor, and not the general thing of the Avedas HaKoyanim? So the Rebbe says, because that we already were commanded on in Parshas Emor, and over here it says, Ves'arim Ves'man of Tifked, you have to give a new appointment. So in other words, it's something new, a new designation. Now, when the Rebbe asked this question at the Farbrengen, Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar Tafshin Lamed Dalid, 47 years ago, the Rebbe said it's such a simple question, and it's a surprise that nobody asks it. And then the Rebbe said with a smile that even I didn't ask it till this year. But it came up. In other words, what's Rashi coming and saying V'Shamrus Kunasam means Kabbalas Damim Uzrika V'Aktor? Why can't we just say Avodas HaKoyanim? So as we said, because we already spoke about in Parshas Emor. And therefore, Rashi says that's coming in continuation to what we spoke about, that the Levim were appointed to watch over Mishmeres Bnei Yisrael. That technically all the Yidden would have had to do it, but the Levim did it in their shlichus. So therefore, the Torah has to come and tell you that the Levim should not do Kabbalas Damim Uzrika V'Aktor on the Karban Pesach, because in the Pesach Mitzrayim they did the Yidden did it by themselves. The Lakchu, V'Nasnu, Tzliesh, etc. So the Levim should not learn from that and do the work of the Kohanim. To do the things that lechatchila to Kohanim, in other words, that were never even given to Bnei Yisrael. Now that was the original Sicha. During the Farbrengen, like in every week, the Rebbe then explained something from his father, the Levi Yitzchak, on the Zohar. Then the Rebbe explained a Mishnah on Pirkei Avos. And then the Rebbe comes to the Hoira that we learned, Siv Zayin, where the Rebbe in those years, in the Lamed, the Rebbe was talking a lot about Mir Yehudi, the fundamental question, which is, who's a Jew? Because the Israeli parliament at the time did not accept the Rebbe's view to say that any person that's a Jew kahalacha, they took the word halacha out. So basically false conversions were valid as well. And the Rebbe was, you just have to read the sichas of the Lameds to see it. It's almost weekly. Hagzeda ha'yuma, the terrible gzeda. And the Rebbe talks about strengthening the mivtzoyim at the time. Obviously, that's, the Rebbe says you cannot say that because of Mir Yehudi something happened, a tragedy. But the Rebbe used the famous example, the mashal that he used a few times, and that is, if a soldier is shot and killed and he wasn't wearing a helmet, that's not the fact that he wore the helmet is not the reason he was killed. He was killed because he was shot. But had he had a helmet, he would have been saved. So too, when we break the mechitzas between Am Yisrael and La'amim, that causes unbelievable tsaras, and the Rebbe was obviously referring to some difficult things that happened at the time. And at the time, the Rebbe was encouraging Mivtza Tefillin, Mivtza Torah, Mivtza Mezuzah, Mivtza Tzedakah, Mivtza Sfarim. Those were the Mivtzayim on the time. And the Rebbe says that when you do these things, it doesn't only accomplish Shmir for you, but for Yidden wherever they are, even those who are not Mekayim mitzvahs yet, or those specific mitzvahs. Even though the Rebbe says, obviously, the Kiyam HaMitzvahs of one does not remove the obligation from somebody else. We have to do the effort to make sure the other person does. But nevertheless, it does have a spiritual pull on them because we're all Arevim Salazeh. And therefore, when one person does a mitzvah, you could accomplish Shmira for all Bnei Yisrael, especially as what the Rambam says, each one of us has to see that the world is on a scale and pretty much you can tip the scale. So I'm recording this while there's a bit of violence going on in Eretz Yisrael against Yidden, in Yerushalayim, B'chulu. So, Eretz Hashem, through our doing Mitzvah Torah and learning the Rebbe Sichos, that could bring Sur status. Now, later on, the Rebbe spoke about Gir Kalacha more, and he said some people say that when you talk about Gir Kalacha, that's going to cause Sinna Mitzad HaGoyim, which is something the Rebbe references actually in the Mugah Sicha as well. The truth is that you're not offending the guy at all. You're not offending the guy. Ponu b'charto mikol am v'loshen, v'yisam riskula mikol ha'amim, leila toyu b'ra el l'sheves yitzadeh. And basically what the Rebbe says that yes, there is, the Eibishter needs Yidden, and he has everybody else as well. Klalus in the mitzvah is shaykh to them as well. But there is something that we were chosen, and the guy's job is to help the Yid to help be a mamleches kohen. So therefore, it's understood that all the issues of the world politics are not negir pnei Yisrael, and we have to do what we have to do. And the Rebbe then finished off and saying every Yid's home needs to have a tzedakah pushka. And the Rebbe says, and that's how a Yid points out to Hashem and says, look at the tzedakah pushka, which reminds me that I have to hurry up, and reminds you, the Eibishter, that we have to hurry up and bring the Gula.